Inside John F. Kennedy's campaign headquarters, the tension was palpable. Only a few days remained before the very first televised presidential debates in U.S. history. Polls showed his opponent, Vice President Richard Nixon, in the lead, an experienced politician and a gifted speaker. Kennedy worried whether he could convince the nation that he was more than just a handsome face, that he was a true leader. His team prepared him for every single detail: how to sit, where to place his hands, and how to look straight into the camera. Everyone understood that this time it wasn't only about words, it was about the image. Because television was not radio. On TV, what mattered wasn't just what you said, but how you looked, even in silence. In this episode, we'll explore the life of America's 35th president, the first politician of the new media age. We'll uncover how he managed to win the election, what lay behind the carefully crafted image of the perfect American symbol, and how he forever changed the United States. And, of course, we'll once again return to the mystery of his assassination. John was born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts, into a Catholic family of Irish descent. His mother, Rose Fitzgerald, was the daughter of Boston's mayor. His father, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., combined sharp financial instincts with strong political ambitions. By the age of 30, he was already a millionaire, later leading the Securities and Exchange Commission, serving in the Navy Department, and representing the United States as ambassador to the United Kingdom. Joseph dreamed of building a political dynasty. He placed his highest hopes on his eldest son, Joseph Jr., but John, too, enjoyed his father's unwavering support. At his prestigious private school, John quickly became a star, charismatic, witty, and athletic. He played tennis, basketball, and football, sailed regularly, read the New York Times every day, and even founded a satirical club where students poked fun at their teachers. When he entered Harvard, John studied government, traveled across Europe, and in London effectively served as his father's secretary. Witnessing the early days of World War II, he devoted his senior thesis to the 1938 Munich Agreement and Britain's lack of readiness to confront Hitler. That thesis was later published under the title "Why England Slept" and received praise, even from President Franklin Roosevelt. Almost overnight, Kennedy found himself recognized as an author with a name. The war was escalating. Following in the footsteps of his older brother, a Navy pilot, John too longed to serve on the front lines. Any man who was asked in this century what he did to make his life worthwhile, he once said, I believe can answer with a good deal of pride and satisfaction, I served in the United States Navy. At first, the Navy rejected him because of his chronic back injury. But with the help of his father's connections, Kennedy was accepted into the reserves as an ensign. He completed officer training, studied at the Motor Torpedo Boat Squadron Training Center, and soon took command of PT-109 near the coast of New Guinea. On the night of August 2nd, 1943, disaster struck. His boat was torn apart by the Japanese destroyer Amagiri. Flames erupted, gasoline exploded, and cries of the wounded filled the night. The crew was thrown into the sea, surrounded by burning fuel. One injured sailor could not swim. Kennedy gripped his life jacket strap with his teeth and pulled him through the waves. After hours of exhausting struggle, the men reached a small island. 11 of the 13 survived. Soon, they encountered local islanders. Kennedy carved a rescue message into a coconut shell, which the villagers carried to an American base. The crew was saved. Kennedy was awarded a medal, and his beloved New York Times turned him into a national hero. For the rest of his life, he kept that coconut on his desk in the Oval Office, a reminder of war and survival. The following year, tragedy struck again. His older brother Joseph was killed on a secret mission in Europe. John, after months of treatment for his injuries, was honorably discharged from the Navy. The Purple Heart and the Navy Medal cemented his reputation as a responsible and courageous leader. In 1945, Kennedy worked briefly as a journalist, covering the founding conference of the United Nations in San Francisco and receiving accreditation for the Potsdam Conference. But after seeing the inner workings of great power politics, he made up his mind. He didn't want to just report history, he wanted to shape it. With his father's backing, John Kennedy set his sights on Congress. From the very start of his career, John skillfully used his public image. During his first campaign, his team distributed hundreds of thousands of copies of a heroic profile written by John Hersey, which celebrated Kennedy as a war hero. In 1946, running as a Democrat, John won a seat in the House of Representatives, where he served for 6 years, 3 full terms. Then, in 1952, the young and charismatic Kennedy advanced to the Senate. For a politician carefully shaping his public brand, there was only one thing missing: a lady by his side. At a party, he met Jacqueline Bouvier, an intelligent and elegant journalist. Their wedding became the social event of the year, a glamorous union adored by the press. In 1960, Kennedy went all in and announced his candidacy for president. In a nation where 70% of the population was Protestant, his Catholic faith raised concerns. To confront those prejudices, he spoke before a gathering of Protestant ministers in Texas. "I am not the Catholic candidate for president. I am the Democratic Party's candidate for president, who also happens to be Catholic." A war hero, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, and a charismatic senator, Kennedy positioned himself as the bold alternative to the reserved Nixon, calling for breakthroughs in every aspect of American life. We stand today on the edge of a new frontier. A frontier of unknown opportunities and perils. A frontier of science and space. A frontier of unsolved problems of poverty and racial injustice. A frontier that beckons us forward. The first televised presidential debates in American history became a turning point, not only in that election, but in politics itself. On September 26, 1960, the nation stopped to watch. Two men appeared on screen. Nixon, pale, weakened by illness, refusing makeup, wiping sweat from his face. And Kennedy, calm, tanned, confident, looking directly into the camera as into the eyes of every voter. Both spoke with conviction, but for the first time, it wasn't just words that mattered. It was the image. Those who listened on the radio gave Nixon the edge. But radio's era had ended. The age of the visual show had begun, and it continues to this day. If you enjoy the way our channel uses modern tools to bring history to life, leave a like on this video. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Your support helps us keep going. Kennedy won the election by the slimmest of margins, less than 0.2%, a result still debated to this day. He became the youngest elected president in U.S. history and the first Catholic ever to hold the office. His charisma and energy symbolized the dawn of a new America. Though Kennedy served for less than 3 years, his impact was unforgettable. He created the Peace Corps, launched the Apollo space program, and steered the world away from nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was also the first president to master television as a tool of political influence. But not everything went smoothly. Kennedy's first major foreign policy failure was the Bay of Pigs invasion, a CIA-led operation against Fidel Castro's regime in Cuba. Poorly planned and executed, it ended in disaster. More than 40 nations at the United Nations General Assembly condemned the United States. For the first time, Kennedy's carefully crafted image as a decisive leader was shaken. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy secretly agreed to withdraw U.S. Jupiter missiles from Turkey, a concession unlikely to have been welcomed by America's NATO allies. The deal with Khrushchev remained confidential, and the missiles were quietly removed under the pretext of being outdated. Publicly, however, Kennedy emerged as the victor, forcing the Soviets to remove their nuclear weapons from Cuba without any visible concessions from the U.S. In Southeast Asia, Kennedy underestimated the risks of intervention in Vietnam. At first, the U.S. sent military advisors and Marines. Soon after, a coup, quietly supported by Washington, led to the assassination of President Ngo Dinh Diem. The conflict spiraled out of control, becoming a full-scale war, one America would ultimately lose. At home, Kennedy moved cautiously. He voiced support for Martin Luther King Jr. during the Civil Rights campaign, but as president, he avoided direct confrontation with segregationists. He signed an executive order on equal employment, yet his key reforms were blocked by Congress. Only the March on Washington forced Kennedy to take a public stand against racism by submitting a civil rights bill to Congress. That landmark legislation, however, would be passed only after his death. Behind the shine of youth and charisma, Kennedy struggled with serious health problems. From an early age, he suffered chronic back pain, and in 1947, he was diagnosed with Addison's disease, a rare disorder of the adrenal glands. He wore a brace, relied on hormone treatments, and often needed help with even simple tasks. Yet before the public, he always appeared energetic, confident, almost flawless. Kennedy also led a turbulent personal life, with numerous affairs dating back to his youth, some of them intersecting with politics. One of the most mysterious was his relationship with Inga Arvad, Miss Denmark, and a journalist for the Washington Times-Herald. She had once interviewed Hitler and even attended Hermann Goering's wedding. The FBI suspected her of espionage. Though the affair ended in 1942, those close to Kennedy later admitted that Inga may have been the only woman he truly loved. With Jacqueline's arrival, Kennedy's image became outwardly impeccable. As First Lady, Jackie transformed the White House into a cultural showcase. She accompanied her husband on state visits, captivating the world with her style, intellect, and command of languages. Many called her Kennedy's secret weapon. He himself once joked, "I am the man who accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to Paris." But behind the scenes, their marriage was far from perfect. Rumors spread that, tired of John's infidelities, Jacqueline considered divorce. Allegedly, Kennedy's father persuaded her to stay, reportedly offering $1 million, though no proof of this has ever surfaced. The most sensational of Kennedy's rumored affairs was with Marilyn Monroe. After her sultry performance at the president's birthday celebration in May 1962, speculation about a romance between two of the era's greatest icons shook the world. Whispers even suggested that Monroe had also been involved with John's brother, Robert, though no evidence of that has ever been confirmed. On November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, while riding with Jacqueline in the presidential motorcade. The investigation concluded that the assassin was Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone. Yet to this day, many questions remain unanswered, especially since Oswald himself was killed just 2 days after his arrest. Alternative theories have swirled for decades. Some pointed to Soviet or Cuban intelligence services. Others blamed the mafia, angered by Kennedy's anti-corruption policies. Still others suspected the CIA, an agency he was rumored to be planning to reform. When new documents were declassified in 2025, they brought no revelations. The lone gunman theory remained unchallenged. After John's death, Jacqueline Kennedy shaped one of the most enduring political metaphors of the 20th century. She compared his presidency to the legendary Camelot, the court of King Arthur, a realm of honor, nobility, and lofty ideals. That image became the lens through which America remembered Kennedy's brief presidency. A young leader who inspired millions, a man who promised a new era, and like King Arthur, a hero who was taken far too soon. This modern myth continues to haunt the world of media and cinema. Two striking examples stand out: Roger Donaldson's acclaimed film 13 Days and the award-winning series 11/22/63, based on Stephen King's novel. In both, Kennedy appears not just as a man, but as a symbol, a figure whose life and death became the stage for a show that has never ended. For it was with Kennedy that the era of politicians as media brands truly began. And now, let us ask you, who do you think are the brightest representatives of this new age of political icons? Share your thoughts in the comments below.